Our fridge got kind of full with milk, so this morning I'm making cheese. I've already done the heating. It's hanging tight at almost 180. I heated it to 185. And now I'm gonna take my pot, put a lid on it, and I'm gonna go set it in the sink in some water to get it to cool down to about 85 degrees. The cheese we're gonna make today is called Chevre. It's a very simple cheese. And all I use is our raw goat's milk, and I heat it up because I don't want to risk any pathogens. I heat it up and then get it cooled down to 85 degrees, and we're gonna use a culture that I get from New England Cheese Company. I actually need to order some more. I've only got one more left. That makes it super duper simple. Once I get it down to 85 degrees, I just have to sprinkle the culture over the top, let it rehydrate, mix it in, cover up this pot, and let it sit for 12 hours. So I've got it cooled down to 85 degrees. I'm gonna take this little packet of culture, so I'm just gonna sprinkle it over the top. And you just let it sit in there a minute or so to rehydrate. Once we've done that, then we'll mix it in. And then this pot, I'm gonna put the lid on, I'm gonna cover it with a rag, set it at the back of the stove, and it's gonna sit there for 12 hours. After 12 hours, I will get the curds out, and I'll put them in some cheesecloth and hang them up to strain. And I'll show you when I get to that next step too. So, hopefully that's been long enough for our culture. Mix it in. I am not left-handed. I love this because it really doesn't need much from me during the day to turn into a nice cheese. There's our lid. And the thermal mass of all of this together, especially covered with the rag, keeps it at the perfect temperature for incubating. That's all it needs from me. What are you eating, Dorothy?
Pepper.
Pepper.
Sweet pepper.
Some of our sweet peppers came ripe, and Dorothy wanted to eat one like an apple, but I convinced her to let me cut it up first. This is what it looks like after it's been sitting for 12 hours. See the whey is separated and that curd there. And so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put it in this cheesecloth, and this time I'm gonna try having a strainer underneath it instead of hanging it up. I'm just gonna set it over a bowl, probably back over this pot actually. And I will be able to strain out the cheese overnight, and in the morning we'll have fresh Chevre. So here's the whey that drained off initially, and over here I have the curds wrapped up in a butter muslin, and I tied it up and have that spoon handle through so it won't just sit on top of the cheese all night. And it's gonna drip down into the pot below, and then we'll have cheese. Okay, it's the next morning, and let's see what this cheese looks like. I'm trying to undo this cloth with one hand, so pardon the klutziness. And you may hear some complaints in the background. Yep, there we go. Sweet little Miss Fern puppy is insulted by all things that require her to stay in one place and hem her in. Crates, fences, you know, all things. So there's our cheese. Look at that. So it's still kind of a moist cheese, which is nice because that makes it spreadable. I'm gonna take it and put it in a bowl and mix in a little salt. That will stop the effect of the culture that's in there and make it a little more stable so it'll hang tight in the fridge. So there it is with the salt mixed in. It's very along the lines of cream cheese as far as texture. There's a little bit of graininess to it that you don't usually find in cream cheese, but it's very smooth and soft. And that has me inspired for breakfast this morning. So here is my inspired breakfast. A Chevre on my toast, and my ground cherry jelly that you saw Dorothy helping me make last week. They're actually a very nice balance to each other. Probably should have given the Chevre a little bit longer. It's still a little tangy, but the texture is so good. It's so creamy, and it's the perfect balance for this because the ground cherries the ground cherries are sweet. I didn't over sweeten it. In fact, I only added the tiniest bit of pectin just to try and make sure it wasn't completely loose and runny. It gelled up pretty well on its own just from cooking. So there isn't too much added sugar in here. But they're already so sweet, and they almost have a slight tropical kind of taste to them, a grounding. It's really amazing. And these two combined are fabulous. Now I've got my coffee. I've been trying to make the swap over. It's so easy to buy the big jugs of the Coffee Mate, which is what we've been doing. And then I looked at the ingredients, and there's nothing on there that remotely resembles dairy. So decided to try and make that swap. So I'm using our goat's milk, I'm adding stevia, and I'm adding some vanilla. I'm using that as creamer. It's not as sweet, it's not as thick, but I think I can get used to it. And maybe eventually if I can get my hands on some local cream or something, that probably would help to sweeten it up. But making those little bitty swaps are something you can handle. Another swap I would love to have seen is if this bread on my plate was homemade, but you honestly cannot do everything. It's not possible. I've tried. I cannot do everything. My kitchen sink over there is a mess. I've got to clean the dishes. And we have our last swimming lesson this morning, so it won't happen before we leave. And you know what? It's okay. It will not change the course of the universe if there are dishes in my sink. So give yourself some grace. Give yourself some permission to have some things undone and not make absolutely everything. I hope you enjoyed meeting our new little livestock guardian, Miss Fern. Fern is a full sister of baby Val, and it's really neat. It's neat to have her here on the property. She's getting used to the goats. I've been doing walks around the backyard fence with her in the morning and the afternoon, training her where the first little boundary is, and then as she gets bigger, I'm going to start walking with her on more of the property, and she'll eventually stay full-time with the goats. Now, big dreams, when we have more fencing up, then she'll stay out on the larger pasture areas, because that's where she's the happiest. You can already see it in her little demeanor. She wants to be outside, and she doesn't like barriers. She doesn't like boundaries. They don't make her happy. But she's going to do a great job watching our property and watching our goats, and even my kiddos, even though Bayron's doing that. Bayron's a little peeved because he doesn't really love her. Because she acts like an annoying kid sister right now at this point. She follows him around and she wants to play with him, and she's jumping up at his face, and he isn't having it. Because he's finally chilled out himself. How funny. He's gone from being the big puppy to being chilled out. But thanks for hanging out with us for this random little hodgepodge of life. It's so much fun sharing our life with you. I hope you have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next time.